Good afternoon, Mayor. I can try to have you testing your microphone, see if what I just did helped over here. Good afternoon, Mayor. If I can have you unmute yourself just so I can test your microphone, see if what I just did on my end is working.
Hey.
Okay. Let me see.
Hi, stranger.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor.
Hi.
Okay. I am still having some problems hearing. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can all hear you, Mayor.
I'm just making sure. She said she can't hear, and I talk loud, so she can't hear me. She can't hear anybody.
You are right about that. Did you get my picture? Okay.
I did. Thank you. We'll circulate later today when I have the final.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. I see Councilmember Alvarez is in the audience, so we'll need to promote him. Just so you know, every single council member signed on.
I have promoted Councilmember Alvarez to panelist. Perfect. All right, looks like we have our staff and we have our council members.
Okay,
Like
I will go ahead and call us to order. Do you want to take the roll?
Of course, we have Councilmember Alvarez.
Can you guys hear me?
There you go.
We can.
I can't hear you guys.
If you go down to the bottom where it says mute, there's a little caret, and for your microphone or your speaker. Okay, I was just having the same problem.
Oh, believe me, today's been my day. Natalie, how are you?
Good, Eddie.
So I think we're all here then.
Yes.
All right. Do we have any announcements before we jump in? We do have approval of the minutes. Did either of you get a chance to look at the November 18th, 2020 minutes? And if so, do you have any corrections, changes, anything you'd like to see?
No.
I'm saying nothing. So without objection, we'll show those as adopted unanimously by the subcommittee. We'll move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. That's number 4. So let's go ahead. I see a couple hands starting to raise. If you are interested in providing public comment today in this forum, go ahead and hit the raise hand feature on your Zoom or hit *9 if you are on the phone calling in and want to make some comments as well. You'll have 3 minutes to address the council, and we'll start with Woody, followed by Jenny.
Perfect. Let me just make a quick announcement. A countdown timer will appear for the convenience of the speaker and viewers. The first speaker will be acknowledged and invited to speak. Please make sure to unmute yourself when you are invited to do so. Your microphone will be muted at the end of that countdown or at the conclusion of your comment. Just one moment. And Mayor, you said start with Woody and then go to Jenny?
Yep, Woody followed by Jenny.
Woody, I have enabled your speaking permissions.
Okay, I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can. Yep. Please identify yourself for public record if you so choose, and your time begins now.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. My name is Woody Hastings. I live in unincorporated Sonoma County, and I'm speaking today as a resident of Sonoma County, not on behalf of any organization. However, I am the co-coordinator of the coalition opposing new gas stations. So actually, I am speaking for the coalition opposing new gas stations, I should say that. And I did speak in November. And what I said then was that it would be great if the committee could take up an issue that is important to the coalition, and that is a discussion around looking at an ordinance to at least highly place new restrictions on the development of new gas stations in the city of Santa Rosa, if not an outright ban. And the reason for that is that new gas stations are still being proposed, and we're in the midst of a climate crisis. 2 of them are in the city of Santa Rosa, and we're working on those. But we think that Santa Rosa should update its rules around new permits to really restrict, if not ban, new applications coming in for that. Some late breaking news is just the other night, the city of Petaluma adopted a climate action framework that includes, one of their points is to make their moratorium on new gas stations permanent. And that effectively would make it a ban. Now, that's still in the works, and it probably won't be till March or April that it comes to council. But it looks like city of Petaluma is on track to ban new permits for new gas stations coming in. So that's the main thing. I really would just like to see it agendized so we can have a discussion. The coalition opposing new gas stations has provided previously to members of the city council some ordinance elements that you could consider if you're not interested in an outright ban. Some of the new requirements that you could impose that would make it very difficult to build a new gas station in Santa Rosa. You could could develop an ordinance of that nature. That's pretty much it. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. I let go the rest of my time.
All right, thank you, Woody. I really appreciate your comments. And just for the public, we do intend to bring that back. I've got to work with staff. It'll either be at our next meeting for discussion for the subcommittee, or it'll be at one of our next ones after that. But we'll find a time and for sure we'll bring that back. Next, we have Jenny, followed by Mike.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Jenny.
Great. Thank you very much. So, well, that was good news, what you said then, that you would be bringing this forward. My name is Jenny Blaker. I live in Cotati, and I'm a co-coordinator of the Coalition Opposing New Gas Stations, ConGas. First of all, I'd like to thank you all very much for the important work that you do on this committee to bring about practical changes at the local level in response to the climate crisis. That is what we're trying to do as well. I submitted an email on Sunday, which I sent to each of the councillors individually as well as to staff. So I hope you received it, with a letter requesting that you agendize considering a draft ordinance to end the permitting of new gas stations in the city of Santa Rosa, together with some policy points to discuss. As well, Woody said a lot of this already, but transportation accounts for 60% of the county's greenhouse gas emissions. We have enough gas stations already. Our main objection to new gas stations is that they will inevitably prolong our dependency on fossil fuel infrastructure into the future, when we should instead be focusing on land use planning to reduce the need for cars and promoting safe, reliable, affordable public transportation using clean fuels and safe, connected, accessible infrastructure for pedestrians and bicyclists. People of color and indigenous communities are disproportionately affected by air, water, and soil pollution due to the fossil fuel industry, whether at the point of extraction because of the construction of pipelines across the county or at the refineries. There are often many other local site-specific impacts, including air pollution, leaking underground storage tanks, traffic safety and congestion issues, and health issues, and on and on. Congas has so far successfully opposed 3 gas stations in the county. 2 or 3 more are pending right now in Santa Rosa. Rather than waste time, energy, and money opposing individual gas stations and having the staff waste time and money processing them, we would like to see the passage of an ordinance that stops or severely restricts the permitting of any new gas stations in the future. We'd be happy to offer a presentation and provide more detailed information on the negative impacts of gas stations on human health, the environment, and the economy. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope to be able to address this subcommittee on this topic in the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jenny. We'll go to Mike and followed by Kevin.
Mike, I have enabled your speaking permissions. Do you see the timer on your screen?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. Please identify yourself for public record if you so choose, and your time begins now.
Thanks, Kelly. This is Mike Turgeon, and I'm with Friends of the Climate Action Plan, a resident of Santa Rosa. First, I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for bringing new voices to the subcommittee in the form of Ms. Rogers and Mr. Alvarez. Well appreciated. And my request may already have been taken into consideration, so I'll make it short. On Monday, the Regional Climate Protection Authority and the Sonoma County Transportation Authority unanimously approved endorsing the Climate Safe California campaign when Ellie Cohen of the Climate Center here in Santa Rosa made her presentation. And so my desire would be to have the Climate Action Subcommittee take it up as soon as possible. And the whole gist of the document itself is to secure local endorsements as the Climate Center uses this vehicle to lobby in Sacramento towards state policy to help us speed up the process of addressing the climate change. So thank you very much for the work you guys are doing. Well appreciated. I'll cede the rest of my time.
Great. Thank you, Mike. We'll go to Kevin, followed by Mark.
Kevin,
Good
I have-
afternoon. Okay, thank you. I do see the timer. Thank you, Kelly. First of all, welcome to Natalie Rogers and Eddie Alvarez to the council and to the Climate Action Subcommittee. Thank you for meeting and best of luck to you guys this year in accomplishing a much needed and very urgent climate action agenda. My brief comment is that I'd hope to see on each agenda when you meet a section that might be titled Old Business. For example, there was some action taken around the idea of having a municipal microgrid brought before the council at large, and there's no status update. So I don't know, it seems to be hanging kind of in limbo. And that would be also true if you do go with the Congas and you agendize that. After that is done, I would hope to have follow-ups at concurrent meetings as to what the status of Congas is. And I also encourage you to support the Climate Safe California. I know, Mayor, that you saw and heard Ellie Cohen's presentation. I thought it was absolutely excellent, if a little bit scary. But I think that what they have going at the Climate Center is very important. And I hope that the Climate Action Subcommittee is in full support of what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And just as a quick note, we do have goal setting that is coming up. And one of the things that we regularly do, and council members just received today, their first draft update, which does walk through and categorize the things that have been in progress and sort of where they sit, so that we can see the full scope of work that has been accomplished and the next steps. So keep an eye out for that, Kevin. Next, we'll go to Mark.
Mark, I have enabled your speaking permissions. Do you see the timer on your screen?
I sure do.
Perfect. Your time begins now.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, let's see, since all the good comments are taken, yeah, I pretty much just echo what's been stated before about getting that Congas thing, getting the gas ordinance on the agenda, and it sounds like that's going to happen. Looking forward to seeing what's happening on the status of the municipal microgrid and so on. And so, yeah, I'll just take a quick opportunity to say that we're looking forward very much. Mayor Rogers, Council Members Alvarez and Rogers, welcome to the committee, and Friends of the Climate Action Plan is looking forward to very much to working with you, and looking forward to a great year ahead and dealing with some very important issues. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on public comment today for items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, Callie, did we have any voicemail recordings prior to the meeting?
No voicemail or email public comment.
Great. I will close public comment then, and I'll bring it back to the council. Vice Mayor, council member, do either of you have any opening comments that you kind of want to make now that you're on the committee? Quick hello to folks, or should we move on to item number 5?
Oh, we'll always use the opportunity to say hello and thank you for those that have spoke for welcoming us. And we are happy, well, I'm happy to go ahead and learn more about the climate and how I can support and assist and be available because we only have one Earth and we need to preserve it. So thank you guys for welcoming me.
Councilmember?
Well, I just want to echo what Natalie just said, and if I add anything, it's that we have a community who's very concerned about the climate, and I'm thankful for that. I personally come from an area where this is something, I won't say it's new, but it's something that we haven't really wrapped our arms fully around. So I thank the community for educating me so I can actually kind of echo the sentiments and the concerns to my community. So with that, thank you for taking the time to educate me, to prepare me for the conversations that I'm going to be having with my fellow council, my fellow neighbors and friends.
Well, thank you both so much for not just being willing to serve on this committee, but for both talking about advocacy and wanting to be a part of something that's really been over the last year effective in moving policy forward here in Santa Rosa. So we are looking forward to it. I did mention some of the things that'll be coming. I'll be working with staff to make sure that we get those scheduled. And we will likely also next meeting, be scheduling an agenda item to take in input on what else we should be working on to see what ideas are out there. And with that, we will move to item 5, item 5.1, our update on converting streetlights to LEDs.
And Mike will be presenting.
Yeah. Mike, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Rogers. And Callie, do you have the presentation?
Yep, I'm bringing it up right now. One moment, please. Do you see the presentation on your screen?
Yeah, looks great.
Perfect. Take it away.
Thank you. I'm Mike Dimity, Associate Traffic Engineer in the Transportation and Public Works Department. I've worked on the streetlight program since 2009, and I'm here to give you an update on the status of the conversion to LED. Next slide, please. So Santa Rosa is in an advantageous position as it owns and maintains its streetlight infrastructure, and as a result has been able to install different streetlight fixtures without the need to go through PG&E. So during 2 previous economic downturns, streetlights were turned off to address budget shortfalls. By 2014, approximately 4,600 streetlights had been turned off or put on timers. And the timers are where the streetlights were off from midnight to 5:30 a.m. So at the same time, LED technology in streetlights had matured with costs decreasing and the efficiency increasing enough to justify their installation. Next slide, please. Starting in 2015, streetlights were converted to LED. And to date, 13,700 streetlights have been converted, and $3 million has been spent on the project. The savings in energy is 4 million kilowatt hours, which is equivalent to 2,967 metric tons of greenhouse gases. The program also saves approximately $500,000 per year in energy. In the first few years of the program, PG&E also had a rebate incentive, which resulted in rebate checks totaling $338,000, which went back to the general fund. So to compare the efficiencies of LEDs with high pressure sodium fixtures, the first fixtures that we installed with the program, they went from 70 watt high pressure sodium to 25 watt LEDs while keeping the same light output. The payback period from energy savings for most of the fixtures was 4 to 5 years, and that was easily covered by the warranties on those fixtures. The expected lifespan of the streetlight fixtures is up to 20 years. And I do want to mention that the project to this point has been completed entirely in-house by city staff. Next slide, please. The vast majority of streetlights in Santa Rosa are the overhead fixtures that we call Cobra head style. The LED conversions for those streetlights replaces the entire fixture. So that part of the LED conversion has been complete, and the LEDs that are left to convert are the various decorative fixtures that are not currently in the Santa Rosa standards, and those are spread throughout the city. Instead of replacing the entire fixture, these LED conversions will replace the existing light bulb with an LED equivalent. While this sounds easier, this can often be more costly as custom or semi-custom LED bulbs need to be used where space is limited within a fixture. Due to advances in LED technology, the efficiency has actually improved, and energy savings is anticipated to be greater for the remaining fixtures than it was for the previous fixtures. There are 1,300 streetlights left for the conversion, which will cost an estimated $600,000 to complete. The projected energy savings is 400,000 kilowatt hours, which equates to 287 metric tons of greenhouse gas reduction. Due to higher anticipated costs, the payback for these fixtures is approximately 6 to 7 years. And the LED conversion project had been fully funded and programmed to complete during this fiscal year. However, that funding was reallocated to pay for other council priorities in July of 2020. Next slide, please. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Great. Council members, do you have any questions? Councilmember Alvarez, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to the 400,000 kilowatt hours, what does that equate to the savings that I understood the tons, and what price per kilowatt are we currently paying? And I have a few other questions as well.
Sure. As far as what the equivalents are in vehicle miles traveled or number of households, I don't have that information at my fingertips now, but I could definitely get that to you. Similarly, with the price paid per kilowatt hour, I don't have that ready.
Sure. Well, I'm doing pretty good then. If I can ask you questions that you weren't ready, I'm doing my homework, man.
Very good.
Another question for you: do we have any insight into what the technology is coming to play other than LED? Because it's my understanding that really when it comes to the high pressure or the HPS, LED blows it out the water, so to speak, especially with the lumens and really the heat that's being dispersed by the HPS in the older days. So I'm very happy to see that we have made the conversion to the LED lights. And I'm wondering if there's anything that we should be paying attention to in regards to technology advancements.
Yeah, that's a good point. Before we did the conversion to LED, we did explore some of the other technologies, one of them being induction. That technology has been far surpassed by the LED technology. So we're glad that we didn't embrace induction entirely, and so most of our fixtures are LED. And I think going forward, the efficiency improvement in LED is only going to get better. And at this time, I don't know of any other different types of technology that would surpass it, but certainly we will keep monitoring the state of LED and other streetlight technology and make sure to adopt what's best for Santa Rosa.
Perfect, Mike. And my last question, in regards to the rebates that we stated in the presentation, I take it it's only one-time rebate. It's nothing that is broken down through a 5-year process or anything of that nature, is it?
No, it took some time for us to receive those rebates, but that was a one-time, and my understanding is the PG&E incentive program has not been in use for several years now.
Perfect, thank you, sir.
Vice Mayor, do you have any questions?
No.
Great, thank you. Mike, I just did want to appreciate some of the way that you laid out the information. I think one of the things that we oftentimes struggle with is that there's 1,000 good ideas and we don't quite know which thing is going to give us our biggest bang for our buck in terms of our climate impact. And this is one that we can clearly show the public, yes, upfront cost, but not only does it help save in terms of kilowatt hours and thus our greenhouse gas reductions, but also saves the city money long term. And I wanted to make sure that I had a data point correct, that you said that the useful life for these LED replacements was 20 years. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, we will go and see if there's any public comment on this item. We'll start with Pete, and Pete will be followed by Mark.
Pete, I have enabled your speaking permissions. Let me get the timer up on the screen. One moment, please. Can you confirm you see the timer on your screen?
Yes, I can see the timer on my screen. Thank you.
Perfect. Please identify yourself for public record if you so choose, and your time begins now.
My name is Pete Gang. I'm an architect. I live in Petaluma, and I have a stake in a house on Humboldt Street in Santa Rosa that my son just purchased. Good afternoon, Mayor Rogers and Council Members Alvarez and Rogers. I'm so happy to be engaging in this discussion. Relative to the conversion to LED technology, I fully understand that municipal accounts are separate from community accounts, but I would just suggest the idea of offering to the people of Santa Rosa perhaps free or very low cost LED light bulbs that could replace the incandescent and compact fluorescent bulbs in their homes, which would result in immediate monthly savings on their energy bills, and also would lower the city's overall energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. Just an idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pete, and congratulations to your son on his new home. Glad he picked the correct city in Sonoma County to reside in. And with that, we'll go to Mark.
Mark, I have enabled your speaking permissions. Do you see the timer on your screen?
I sure do.
Perfect. Your time begins now.
Thanks again. And I forgot to identify properly last time. It's Mark Mortensen. I'm a resident here in Santa Rosa, and I'm a member of Friends of the Climate Action Plan, although I haven't talked about this particular item with them, but it's one of their interests. As far as the LED lighting goes, yeah, number one, I totally agree with Pete. You know, one of the great opportunities is to improve energy efficiency in our homes, and you know, having LED light bulbs, it can be a good chunk of change to replace all those compact fluorescents and incandescents. But maybe a program to help out the public on that would be useful. we were asking about, what's the latest and greatest on LED streetlight technology. I think Councilmember Alvarez was asking about that. And the Smart Streetlights program in San Diego is one option to take a look at. What they've done there is they've got sensors on their streetlights that they use for modulating the lighting from the streetlights to reduce energy. And they're also used to keep statistics, anonymous statistics on vehicle counts, pedestrian counts, and so on, which can be used to make a city run more efficiently. And so that program is instituted in San Diego, and it's called shockingly, it's called their Smart Streetlights Project. And that's all I have on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And Mark lives in the best district here in Santa Rosa. I'll let you all guess which one that is.
District 7. Woo, woo.
And with that, I will bring it back to the City Council. Are there any last comments for staff on this item? Seeing none.
Actually, one right here.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
Well, the great comment that we just received, which is the Smart Street program. I would love to see us looking at something such as sensors. We see them being implemented in homes. When you leave a room, there's a timer, and afterwards it shuts down. So that here at my business, actually all my lights are on sensors, and it's absolutely comforting to know that when you open a door and you walk in, the lights turn on, and I don't even have to know where the switches are anymore. So I would I see it at a personal use, and I would love to see it being implemented at a city use. Thank you.
Yeah, I could appreciate that. My apartment was run off of my cell phone, that when my cell phone connected to the internet, the lights would automatically turn on. And then when I left and disconnected from the internet, they'd all turn off. It only got awkward when my phone would die while I was sitting on my couch. I would say, Mike, I know that we talked a little bit about defunding or shifting the funding for the remaining LEDs in this last year's budget. As for context, for those who remember, we cut $18 million from our budget and really needed to make sure we had some funds set aside in our reserves in the event that we had an emergency. And this was viewed as would like to do, but not the most urgent project. I'm hopeful that this will be brought forward again, funded in this year's budget, so that we can have that discussion, since we obviously see the long-term benefits, both economically and for climate. And so we'll be looking for that in the budget. Let's go ahead and move on to our next item. It's item 5.2, our Fleet Climate Action Plan. And Zach, I believe you've got this one.
I'm going to try. Good afternoon, Mayor Rogers, Vice Mayor Rogers, and Councilmember Alvarez. Thank you, Kyle. You got that up there already. This is the first opportunity I've had to actually speak to the committee about the fleet activities and what we're doing over here related to climate action. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to share a few facts about what we have in our fleet and what we're currently doing. Our fleet is fairly large. We manage a little over 1,000 vehicles. We have some alternative fueled vehicles in there, obviously some hybrids, a few transit coaches. We just unleashed our first hybrid police patrol vehicle, and I do believe council's aware of the 4 electric buses that are coming as well. We have 4 full electric passenger vehicles that are available in our motor pool, and we do have a few dedicated compressed natural gas fuel. Overall, our fleet traveled almost 4 million miles last year, a bunch of hours of service for some portable generators or stationary generators and construction equipment, and a decent amount of fuels burned, as demonstrated at the bottom there. Our primary target is going to be transit and police use, because they are taking the lion's share of our fuel use, and that is our main goal, is to reduce the amount of fuel that we are using. Next slide, please. The current strategies in place are obviously the use of electric and hybrid vehicles, finding alternatives to petroleum-based fuels, and we are newly engaged in a vehicle telematics system, which will give us information available to change the way we use our fleet. Next slide. I mentioned earlier, we're already using 4 full electric vehicles in fleet. We have 4 buses coming. We have developed a vehicle standard for vehicles at the replacement cycle. And what we do is we look at the utilization of a vehicle, consider how it's used, how many miles it travels, what tools it has to carry, how many people it has to carry. And if it's applicable, we're going to recommend the use of an electric vehicle to replace an existing petroleum burner. The compact and mid-size sedans are the easiest to convert over to full electric. They have the largest market and biggest options. And we already talked about the transit department. Next slide. The hybrid vehicles, we've been successfully operating those for quite some time. We've got some of the first Toyota Priuses when they came out in 2002. We've continued to use those. We're operating, I think it's about 50-ish hybrids right now across our fleet. They do give us about 25% greater miles per gallon, which is a reduction in fuel burn. Additionally to this, we're seeing some changes in technology. For example, we have some hybrid, we're going to call them electric service trucks. They're basically a boom truck that staff can use to service street lights or power blinds or whatever, but the trucks operate on full electric power when they're stationary and only use the petroleum engine to transport. Next slide. Compressed natural gas is used sparingly. They do function, but they do have their limitations, mostly on availability and how the equipment actually operates when you build up a truck. We did recently, I think in May 2019, convert MSC Fuel Island over to renewable diesel fuel. And this is not biodiesel, it's R99. It's a little different. It's a product that is renewable and we can source it and put it into our tanks here. The big bonus with this one is it reduces the amount of particulate produced out in diesel exhaust, reducing it close to 80%, which is great for the environment there, and also on the maintenance side, reduces the amount of work we have to do to keep things going. Next slide. Vehicle telematics, it's a new modern technology that's coming out. It's been out for quite some time, but it's really refined in the most recent years, providing a lot of interactions or integrations into other systems. We are currently in an RFP process to employ a telematics system across our fleet. We plan on putting it in everything, and it will give significant amount of data to use to analyze how we are using our fleet and decide what we can use, cannot use, what we should get rid of, what we can convert to electric, and so forth. The data is also usable across departments, deploying staff out to job sites so they can understand where they're using their vehicles on travel miles, how they can coordinate their work to reduce the amount of travel. Telematics also gives us the opportunity to enroll in the continuous testing program with BAR. And what that is it's basically smog testing, but all the time. Currently, everybody gets an exemption for 6-7 years before they have to provide a smog test, but the continuous testing program transmits your vehicle data directly to BAR. And we can import that data and learn if there is a malfunction with a vehicle out there immediately and address that. It also, the aggressive driving tactics or coaching, I can't say that we have that concern now, but it is an interesting idea that it can detect it. And if you have operators that do like to stand on their gas pedal or their brake pedal, you can train them and help them learn better driving habits to help reduce the amount of emissions. Next slide. That is really the basics of where we are. I'm here to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Zach. I did have a question similar to the analysis that was done for the LEDs. If we have a 25% reduction in the gas that is used on these hybrids or electrics that we have out there rolling, do we have sort of the price point difference in investing in these vehicles when we have replacements versus the total savings that we get long-term over the lifespan of the vehicle by having that 25% reduction in gas use?
I can't give you a specific number. I can tell you when we did the analysis on the police vehicle hybrids, looking what they presented was going to be the savings versus what the upgraded cost was, I guessed it to come out pretty close to equal based on life cycle fuel burn. Currently, we're seeing it's about 22% increase in miles per gallon in our hybrid unit on the road, which that's going to reduce about 2,000 gallons over the life cycle on that vehicle. The vehicle cost about $4,500 more. So rough guess.
Okay, I appreciate that. Questions from council members?
I have one question.
Go ahead, council member.
On the alternative petroleum-based fuels, was it the 99 or the cleaner particle? Is that one of the alternative fuels, or were there other alternatives that we were looking at?
R99 is a alternative to diesel fuel, albeit it carries the same chemical structure. It starts with a different feedstock, so it is not petroleum-based, and that reduces the amount of sulfur in it. So that is an alternative to petroleum fuels. Natural gas and propane are still petroleum, and then electric is our other option.
So natural gas was one of the alternatives that we were looking at.
Natural gas is a petroleum-based fuel that we have access to. The nearest fueling station is over here off Occidental Road. And we do have a few vehicles that do still operate on that, but there are limitations to the usability of them.
And Councilmember Alvarez, this is Jason Nutt, Assistant City Manager. Zach, you may be able to also chime in. We did evaluate biodiesel for a period of time, mostly through testing, through other agencies testing it out. But Zach, can you describe what we did with that evaluation?
So biodiesel is a blend of petroleum-based diesel and then some plant-based fuel. And we tried it out in a select group of vehicles for about 3 years and to see how the performance was. And it did okay. We experienced some mechanical issues with a lot of vehicles. It just didn't function as hoped for in some of the more current emission strategies. The biggest problem we had with the biodiesel, it was hygroscopic. It attracted water, and it would grow in the tank. So storage was a major issue for it, even storage inside the vehicles, in the fuel tanks of the vehicles themselves. So that was proving very cost prohibitive. The R99 product is non-hygroscopic. It is pretty fascinating. You can leave it in a fuel tank for several years without worrying about it growing mold.
Thank you both.
Okay, we'll go to public comment. So we have Mark, followed by Michael, I think.
Mark, I have enabled your speaking permissions. Do you see the timer?
I sure do.
Perfect. Your time begins now.
Great. Thanks again. And again, it's Mark Mortensen. Wanted to appreciate Zach for the hard work that's going on with the fleet there and electrifying it. Most of the climate action plans around the country usually get down to electrifying the fleet because, well, as we all know, greenhouse gas emissions, typically 50 to 60% of the cities and regions' greenhouse gas emissions are from transportation. And so we're in a fortunate situation with Santa Rosa in that we get our electricity from the Evergreen program, which is fully renewables. And so the quicker we electrify the fleet, the quicker we'll be reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. A couple questions I had. I didn't notice, a greenhouse gas emission goal on the presentation, and where we are currently with greenhouse gas emissions. based on how many electric vehicles and how many gas vehicles we have right now. And so that would be useful information. Obviously we measure things and we can improve them by measuring and taking action. And I was also curious on what are the plans for future conversion, moving away from the fossil fuel based gas vehicles, and that includes moving away from the little used compressed natural gas ones. That's pretty much a methane fuel there, and leakage from those is obviously a very strong greenhouse gas. And so I'm glad we're not using them too much. So yeah, I was just hoping for a little bit more specificity on the goals for emissions reduction with the fleet as we move slowly but inexorably towards electrifying. And possibly the telematics can support also this collection of data. Looks like a very useful tool for collecting data on vehicle miles traveled and how many miles we're traveling in general. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. We'll go to Michael, followed by Pete.
Michael, I have enabled your speaking permissions. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Can you hear me?
We can. Can you see the timer on your screen?
I certainly can.
Please identify yourself for public record if you so choose, and your time begins now.
Sure. Michael Appelt, resident in Santa Rosa. I live on Monroe Street. And just a couple of short comments, and I have a couple questions, and that is, I just wanted to know what the goals are for down the road in terms of percentage of electrification of the Santa Rosa fleet. And I echo what Mark said regarding compressed natural gas. That's a very toxic source of fossil fuels for a variety of reasons, particularly at the extraction sites. It really pollutes the water and the air. Most of natural gas is methane, and that's 87 times more toxic than CO2. It also emits propane, butane, and ethane into the environment. So that's really a dirty source. And a question for Zach is, R99, are you telling me that that's all plant-based, no fossil fuels? So that's pretty much my comments and questions. I really appreciate everybody on the subcommittee for really looking at this as a serious issue, because we are facing a climate emergency. It's good to see young folks. I'm an old guy, and I really appreciate this young blood on the climate subcommittee. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. And Vice Mayor, I think he was talking about you there. We'll go to...
You're the youngest one.
Pete, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, sorry to hold you up. I am a member of the demographic that is called near elderly. So you listen up, you young people. I have 4 quick comments. One is, if we are sincere about a 2030 target date for zero emissions or net zero emissions, that would suggest that we reduce our emissions within every department across every category by 10% of year 2020 or year 2019 baseline for 10 years. It's ambitious. Number 2, this is a pet peeve of mine, but I would suggest considering a policy of no vehicle idling for all city-owned vehicles, which would have immediate benefits at no cost. Number 3, this may already be the practice, but when considering new vehicle purchases, I'd suggest considering life cycle costs over a period of maybe 5 years instead of considering first costs. And finally, I would appreciate, I think it would be helpful in this presentation of vehicle purchases to include the metric of tons of greenhouse gases as was included in the previous presentation. 1 gallon of gas burned releases 20 pounds of CO2 to the atmosphere. So the police use of 100,000 gallons results in 1,000 tons of CO2 per year. It would be good to track that. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you for that data point there on the CO2. Callie, did we have any voicemail comments on this item?
We did not have any voicemail or email public comments on this item.
Okay, I'll bring it back. And Zach or Jason, I'm not quite sure who some of these comments or questions would go towards. I guess the first one that I'm hearing from the public and that I'd be interested in hearing a response from is from a global perspective. At the rate that we are replacing our vehicles with electric vehicles, does that timeline match up with our ambitious 2030 goals for reaching climate neutrality, or excuse me, carbon neutrality?
So Mayor, let me start off, and then maybe Zach can chime in. Realistically, we haven't put those. Those two metrics haven't met each other yet. And so part of the reason we wanted to bring this item to the subcommittee is to begin the conversation about how are we going to establish a vehicle replacement and management program that's consistent with the other aspects of our climate action plan. But in order to start that, we needed to create a baseline so that you knew what our team was doing. And in some cases, we're being very aggressive. In other cases, there might not be a way to be aggressive. So the challenge, Mayor, is we can't really answer that question because we haven't yet put those two lenses together to see where the line crosses.
Okay, I think I'd be interested in, and I'll look for some direction from other council members. I'd be interested in making sure that we do that sooner rather than later. 9 years from now is coming up quick, and we have this conversation all the time about the drastic need that we have. And so I think it would be helpful for me to see sort of a cost breakdown within the spirit of what we were talking about, the added cost to move in the direction of electrified vehicles versus the cost savings from gas, and how we have that purchasing conversation with the full council, I think is appropriate. And perhaps in goal setting as part of where we prioritize that. The other question that I had, and again, I don't know if it's for Zach or for Jason, is whether or not we see an adequate electric infrastructure on the city's resources for the vehicles that we are either currently have or we have planned to have purchased.
Well, I'll start off and Zach can chime in because both of us have been looking at this for different aspects. We do not have the necessary infrastructure. We've initiated a conversation about what it might take, and the investment is going to be substantial. To some extent, this is going to be part of the an evaluation that's occurring right now with microgrids. We are asking them during their evaluation to determine what it would look like if we had different levels of electric vehicles that needed to be serviced and charged at a certain location. But our initial take is it's pretty significant. We're looking at almost $1 million worth of infrastructure to come in and provide electrical service to up to 9 electric buses. With over 1,000 pieces of equipment in our fleet, converting 50% of those to all electric is going to require fairly significant investment or power generation source on site that can handle that many vehicles. It's certainly not insurmountable, but it's going to take some planning, and it's going to take potentially a fairly good investment to make that happen. And of course, the best value for us is to make that investment go as many ways as possible. the concept of a microgrid is certainly one of those tools that could not only provide us the necessary power to charge a fleet, but also to keep us sustainable through the course of a substantial power outage or other disaster. Zach, as you've been looking more deeply, do you have anything additional to add?
I think you pretty much covered it. When we went through the process to provide the electrification for the buses, it was an eye opener. We simply don't have infrastructure at our current location to really support much more than that. So to Jason's point, we have to look at a lot of other alternatives and consider the investment.
Just to give you an idea, Mayor, when we first looked at the electric vehicle or the electric buses, one of the initial statements was, well, we can charge 2 buses. If we get a third, we have to shut down half of the bays in our garage because they're all, I mean, that's where the majority of the power is. And that didn't seem like a reasonable trade-off at that time. So we've worked with PG&E through their EV Fleet Ready program to bring a dedicated line in to take on those 9 electric buses. So, you know, we've definitely looked at as many options as we can, and we'll continue to look as additional studies are starting to come online.
All right, thank you. I think that would be helpful for me. Obviously, it'd be a big undertaking, but is to better understand the cost that we're talking about to scale up our infrastructure to meet the need, as well as the cost differential, what it'll cost for us to upgrade the rest of our fleet to electric. And then the third number would be the long-term cost savings that we would see from fuel usage and possible maintenance reductions as a result of that as well. We have talked in the past about potentially working on a climate change measure, and I know that RCPA is interested in one as well. And I think that for those planning purposes, to be able to articulate to the public what type of benefit a measure like that would bring, to be able to actually express those numbers would be huge for us. The last question that I had that I heard from the public was just a simple one for Zach. The R99, is that entirely plant-based?
It is not entirely plant-based. It's generated from waste plant and animal waste.
Okay. Council members, any other questions or comments?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
I'm excited. Sorry. This has been very exciting and eye-opening. And like Eddie said earlier, it really hasn't been something that I've done in my community, or that my community is big on climate, because we focus on other things like civil rights. But I am definitely excited just hearing the questions and allowing the public to educate us on, well, you know some of this stuff, Chris, but I don't. But educate me on what's going on. And so I'm really excited to dive into it and see how we can help and assist. And the more we know, the more I think it will allow us to help. So yeah, I'm excited.
Okay, with that, we will close this item, look for some follow-up information in the future on it, and go on to item 6, some subcommittee reports. I mentioned earlier some of the items that I anticipate bringing next time or in the near future, including the start of the discussion around gas stations. We also, what I am interested in, if I get the thumbs up from the subcommittee, is doing a workshop somewhere down the road on carbon sequestration and what that looks like from a practical standpoint and how we can scale that up on the city level. Again, carbon neutrality means, acknowledges, I think, that it's going to be difficult to get to 0 greenhouse gas emissions. And so we're going to need some of that offset and some of that carbon sequestration programming to start now so we can scale it up. Thumbs up, council members? Cool. Do either of you have any subcommittee reports or announcements related to climate? I know it's your first one, so it's hard.
No, not at this time. other than I love my Volt, and it has a surprisingly big amount of power for being a hybrid vehicle. So anyone that doesn't own a hybrid or something, I definitely recommend them opposed to the gas only.
Yeah, Eddie was doing donuts the other day. I heard him. All right, Jason or Amy, any department reports?
Jason Nutt, Assistant City Manager. No department reports from the operations portfolio.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor Rogers, and welcome to Vice Mayor Rogers and Council Member Alvarez. This is Amy Nicholson, Senior Planner, and I just have a real quick report. It's about our climate change adaptation workshop. This is being facilitated by planning staff in partnership with the nonprofit EcoAdapt and Virginia Tech, and it's actually funded by a National Science Foundation grant. So we were one of 8 cities that was chosen to participate in this workshop. So this is a 3-part workshop, and it has been scheduled for January 19th, January 21st, and January 27th. And at this time, we have about 30 individuals registered. That includes city staff and also some regional partners. And then a number of representatives from community-based organizations and members from the community at large. So we are excited about this workshop, and the report that comes out of it will be an important resource for the city's general plan and climate action plan updates that are currently underway. And if anyone listening has any questions about this workshop, you can contact me by email at anicholson@srcity.org. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And if you could circulate to council members just a really quick email with some of that information so we can put it out through our networks as well, I think that would be fantastic.
Sure.
Last announcement that I should have done under item 6. Tomorrow is the first California League of Cities Environmental Quality Committee meeting, and it is focused on proposed environmental legislation in the state capitol this year. So keep a lookout for a report out from that as well. With that, we've got nothing left on our agenda. We're at just at an hour, so we will adjourn the meeting and we'll look forward to our next one. Thank you, everybody.